The China-Africa summit has officially kicked off with Chinese President Xi Jinping hosting a grand banquet and a welcome dinner for leaders of 50 African nations. Xi Jinping will open the 9th Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit on Thursday, where he will deliver a keynote address. The three-yearly forum will set the course of China-Africa relations up until 2027. The Chinese president has said that the summit will open a new chapter in China-Africa relations. He has been holding bilateral meetings with several African leaders and has also offered $60 billion in funding over the next 3 years. Xi added there were no political strings attached, but warned against spending on vanity projects.
At the summit, on behalf of the Chinese government, President Xi Jinping will further summarize the development of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, present China's initiatives, and measures to strengthen China-Africa cooperation in the future. He will work with African leaders to plan a new blueprint for China-Africa cooperation, leading the Global South in a new direction. The collective rise of the Global South, represented by China and Africa, is profoundly influencing the course of world history.
So why has China renewed its race for Africa? Well, there are multiple reasons, the biggest being that the continent has become the latest geopolitical playing field, with US, Europe, Russia and China vying for influence and also aiming to tap into Africa's resources. While the West and Russia have been wrestling for security ties with African countries, China's involvement in the continent has been very systematic. Beijing has been investing in Africa for over 2 decades now. It made significant inroads into Africa under President Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative. It is already the largest investor in Africa. Now, through this summit, Africa's biggest bilateral lender, China, wants to slim down its investment portfolio and realign its relations with the developing economies. Beijing is pushing Xi Jinping's new mantra of small and beautiful projects instead of big-ticket infrastructure. In the 2021 China-Africa Summit, Xi Jinping pledged to support 10 projects to improve interconnectivity of African states. This year, China is expected to urge African leaders to absorb more Chinese goods in exchange for pledges of loans and investment. China could also pledge to increase the amount available to African central banks and businesses through credit lines after committing $10 billion at the last summit.
China will continue to deepen infrastructure cooperation with African countries and the African Union, jointly build and operate the major landmark projects that have already been started, and plan and promote a new batch of cooperation projects based on the economic and social development needs of African countries. China will continue to strengthen digital infrastructure construction, deepen cooperation in the fields of digital economy and artificial intelligence, jointly implement green development actions, vigorously advocate green and low-carbon concepts, and practice the concept of green, coordinated and sustainable development.
This is what China could offer, but what do the African nations seek from this summit? Africa is looking for quicker financing solutions to a growing debt crisis. Earlier this week, the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa met with Xi Jinping and said that he wanted to narrow his country's trade deficit with China. China has been making high-interest loans to low-income African nations to fund development of infrastructure projects. Now, it has been criticized for its debt-laden overseas projects under the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, in the latest, Chinese and African officials rejected this criticism as they met in Beijing. African leaders are also seeking fresh job-creating investment pledges and are hoping for assurances and projects proposed in 2021 Dakar Summit will be completed. In 2021, China had pledged to buy African goods worth $300 billion. However, this pledge has not been met yet. China is looking at Africa to gain significant advantage over the US and Europe in global renewable energy race. Africa is home to several important minerals which are needed to create renewable technologies, like copper, cobalt, and lithium, which are key ingredients in battery manufacture. Chinese mining presence in Africa is much lower than Western presence as of now. It is concentrated in 5 countries, including Guinea, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. This year's forum is the first in-person summit since the COVID-19 pandemic. China and delegates from Africa will begin discussions over 2 documents: the Action Plan for 2024 to 27 and a report on the implementation of the last summit in Dakar. Both of these documents will be finalized and signed by the end of the summit. Over years, Africa's vast resources have helped to fuel China's transformation into an economic powerhouse. As China and delegates from Africa begin discussions, the summit will certainly be watched closely by Beijing's competitor in the resource-rich continent. Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment. So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for a future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
Obviously today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can we expect